The station, Mr. H.
Not yet, officer. We'll need him for the finale song. Sometimes I feel like throwing my hands up in the air. I know I can count on you.
Sometimes I feel like saying, Lord, I just don't care. But you got the love I need to see me through.
Sometimes it seems going is just too rough, and things go wrong no matter what I do.
Now and then it seems that life is just too much, but you got the love I need to see me through. You got the love.
You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love. You got the love.
Come here.
You got the love. 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 Sometimes I feel like saying, Lord, I just don't care. But you got the love I need to see me through. Put that can down, Dan. You've had enough. You got the love. 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 You got the love.
You got the love I need to see me through.
Sometimes it seems going is just too rough, and things go wrong no matter what I do.
Now and then it seems that life is just too much, but you got the love I need to see me through. You got the love.
The station, Mr. H.
Not yet, officer. We'll need him for the finale song. Sometimes I feel like throwing my hands up in the air. I know I can count on you.
Sometimes I feel like saying, Lord, I just don't care. But
You got the love. You got the love. You got the love.
Come here.
You got the love. 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 You got the love.
Greetings, my lovelies. This is Blake here, and welcome to my review of The Hateful Eight, Quentin Tarantino's newest movie starring Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and a bunch of other very familiar faces. So, before I start talking about this movie, I really wanted to briefly discuss my review of Django Unchained. Even though I gave it a positive review, I feel like I came across as a bit too negative. Even though back then I thought it was a good movie, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more upon my second viewing of it. But I think the main reason I seemed very caustic is that I have a certain level of expectation for all of Quentin Tarantino's films, and when they are anything short of great, I feel disappointed, and I'm going to latch on to that disappointment. So I would actually say that I'm being very unreasonable. I shouldn't expect 4 out of 4 stars for all of his projects. But I bring this up because I kind of feel like the opposite has happened with The Hateful Eight. It seems like this movie has polarized audiences to an extent, and even the fans seem a bit guarded. And I'm the total opposite because I actually love this movie. I really had a blast watching it. But I just kind of wonder if it's because of the total opposite issue where, because everybody seemed a little disappointed, I was gearing myself up for that same disappointment, so therefore my expectations weren't quite as unreasonable, and therefore I was pleasantly surprised when I enthusiastically embraced almost everything this movie had to offer. Talking about it is going to be a little complicated, though, because certain points I feel like I can explain very clearly, but other points I'm not entirely sure how to put into words quite yet. One thing I really liked about The Hateful Eight, and why I believe it resonated more strongly with me than some of Tarantino's previous movies, such as Django Unchained and maybe even Inglourious Basterds, is that it doesn't seem to be relying so much on referencing or paying homage to past works. Tarantino loves doing that, and it actually is usually very fun watching. Kill Bill is one of my favorite Tarantino movies, and all that is pretty much just one reference after another. However, I kind of feel like I'd like to see Tarantino go back towards, making films like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, where, yeah, there are definitely going to be homages there, but for the most part, they are their own entities. The Hateful Eight is referencing a lot of stuff, and I've heard of what Tarantino has said are his inspirations, but they are very, very different from the things that he is referencing. And to me, this just feels much more like a true original film because I wasn't constantly being reminded of the past. So that's one of the aspects that really jumped out at me and was part of the reason why I liked it. Now, granted, there are a few of his the movies or TV shows that he said were major inspirations for him that I'm just not very familiar with, and that might be the only reason why I feel this way. Before watching this movie, I was actually reading through quite a few reviews, making sure to avoid any with potential spoilers, and it seemed like the general consensus was The Hateful Eight is the most Tarantino-ish of all of Tarantino's films to come out. And what they're referring to is the style of dialogue and the level of violence. And this, believe it or not, is not always used as a praise. Some people felt that the Tarantinoisms really did add to the movie and make it just as cool as the rest. Others felt that they just did not belong in this narrative and hurt the movie as a whole. But I actually disagree with the claim entirely. I believe that The Hateful Eight is the least Tarantino-ish of Tarantino's movies to come out. And the reason why I feel this way, like when you look at the style of dialogue, in all of Tarantino's films up until now, the lines have been designed to be very quotable. Something about them has this really endearing flavor that makes them jump out of the screen and make just the right connection with the individual audience member, which makes them want to quote the movie as much as possible. And even if the movie fades from their memory, usually the dialogue won't. However, with The Hateful Eight, I believe that the dialogue's not really intended to be cool, even though there's definitely great lines on display here. I think the dialogue is still really, really good. It kept me interested from beginning to end. But the context is usually so unsettling and disturbing that I just don't see people wanting to quote it as much. But that's perfect, because this film is really trying to emphasize its cold, bleak, claustrophobic atmosphere. And the audience is supposed to be just as uncomfortable as many of these characters are. And if the dialogue was intended to be more iconic and quotable, it may have distracted the audience from the film's intended goals. So, like I said, I believe the dialogue is still great, maybe just as great as all of his other films, but it's not designed to be as quotable, even though a few lines will probably be very popular anyway. I, for one, have to resist the urge to say Black Dingus all the time. Some of the stuff that comes out of Samuel L. Jackson's mouth in this movie is absurd to the point of almost being silly, but I seriously don't think that anybody else could have pulled this role off, because Samuel L. Jackson's conviction and his intensity when delivering these lines just makes you have to take him seriously. And that takes just a lot of charisma. That takes a true talent that you just don't see very often in any films these days. I'm going to talk about the level of violence later, but for now, let me finish discussing the characters. I thought the character writing was excellent. I liked how throughout the duration of this film, you quickly get a grasp of these characters, who they are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. I like how they could have all been the heroes of their own stories, but they also could have all been the villains of their own stories. So, for example, take the Confederate, played by Bruce Dern. He's a racist bastard who apparently was guilty of some serious war crimes during the Civil War. So we're supposed to hate him and think of him as a villain. However, at the same time, he's only here because he wants to find closure with his son who went missing some time ago. And when he talks about it, there's enough sincere emotion to where you do kind of feel bad for him. Every character is kind of like that. Certain aspects of them that you find admirable, but at the same time they do such deplorable shit. Like Kurt Russell's character, he has his values and he sticks to them, even when it's very inconvenient. However, he's also beating the crap out of this woman who you can't completely sympathize with, because you could tell that this woman's kind of a psycho in her own right. But that kind of stuff just made everybody a little bit more unpredictable, that you don't know what they're going to do by the end of the movie. Will they find redemption or will they find damnation? How low are they willing to go? How monstrous can they become? Or will they turn out to be a lot more heroic than we initially realized? That is just another reason why I found this narrative so compelling. And I thought everybody had the right amount of screen time. All these characters were fleshed out just as well as they needed to be. You learn so much about them. You see their strengths, their weaknesses. They all seem to be... They have something to offer to this story. And even though you might complain that certain characters did not have as much screen time as others, like Michael Madsen's character, for example, has maybe 2 or 3 big scenes, and the rest of the time he's just sort of there. However, I thought that worked because the character is supposed to be shrouded in mystery, and if they had shown more of him, it may have disrupted that aura that the filmmakers were obviously building up around him. I liked how there's a lot of different alternate character interpretations to be seen here. Is so-and-so lying when he said this? Or were they telling the truth? People are going to be debating about certain events within this movie quite some time. And even though the important questions are answered, I liked how the little tidbits here that just heighten the experience so more are left